This was me 11 weeks pregnant, and here I was 15 weeks when I got admitted into the hospital for fibroids that started causing some issues in my pregnancy. I was here for 5 days and I was getting treatment. After I got discharged, I developed another issues with my gums, and I definitely cried a lot during this period. I lost a lot of weight. My weight was literally going down on the scale. And here I was having fun on one of those days with my husband cheering me on, and I think I was about 20 weeks here. Unknown to me, 2 weeks later, I was going to have my contractions and enter preterm labor. My contractions lasted for about 32 hours, and the next day on my 22 weeks, 4 days gestational age, I gave birth to my 2 boys. My first baby was breached, so we had to have an emergency CS, and whilst here at the hospital, I had to start pumping some milk, which it took just 1 day before the milk started flowing. And here I was being wheeled into the NICU, that's the neonatal intensive care unit, to see my babies. My babies were so small, so reddish, and almost transparent. You could almost see their organs. However, I was so happy to see that they were strong and moving and kicking. Even the doctors confirmed that my boys were really strong. Their weight at birth was 490 grams. Funny how the both of them had the exact same weight, and they've been closely following themselves ever since when it comes to weight. The doctors informed us of the importance of doing skin to skin, which is called kangaroo, and we were consistently doing this every single day. 2 weeks, 5 days after their birth, they had to have their first surgery, which was a heart surgery, and this was to close some holes that wasn't closing up by itself. After about 8 weeks of being off of work, my husband had to resume, and then we created a schedule where I would come and visit the babies from Mondays to Fridays, and he would take his turn over the weekend while I stayed home and rest. Despite the schedule, there would be days where we would both decide to come together, and especially when the doctors have an important information for us, we both had to come together to kangaroo. The baby's original birth date was meant to be November 14th, but they were born pretty early, about 4 months earlier, and that was in July 18th. This was the first day that Kian had on some clothes, and we were so euphoric because it was a milestone for them. This particular clip was taken on their 28 weeks, which is August 30th, and Evan was a bit swollen on the face, but he did get better after some time. We met some amazing nurses. This is Kian here, and he is kind of lighter than his brother Evan. They are not identical twins. One thing I'm forever grateful to God for is my milk supply. The pediatrician had informed me of the importance of this breast milk in preterm babies that come in that early. And despite the fact that I was pumping and taken to the hospital at some point, they asked me to stop bringing and just start to store in the house because they had surplus of milk in the hospital. And I'm so grateful to God for this. This is Evan sucking his lollipop with my breast milk in it, and this is how they learned to suckle. We continued for months to kangaroo with our babies every day, and we loved the music therapy that the hospital provided because my babies love music, their mom loves singing, so yes, they have to love music. Initially, it was difficult to tell the babies apart, but since their incubators were placed in different sides of the room, we just knew that was baby 1 and baby 2. But as they grew older, we could differentiate them properly because they had their unique features and they looked very different. After several weeks of being intubated, that is the breathing support, they moved to the CPAP, which is a mask, and then finally moved to the high flow, which is this one you can see on Evan's face here. One of the things that plagues preterm babies born this early is a brain hemorrhage with the blood vessel busting. Kian had a grade 2 that started increasing, so it was almost at a grade 3 and some measures had to be taken. So he had his first brain surgery on the 30th of September in their 33rd week. My babies went through a whole lot, and as a mom or as parents, we did experience the pain with them. It was a very painful thing to see my babies going through all the things they had to go through. At some point, they had to fly them to a different city to get some other treatment in a university hospital. As the days went by, I journaled in my notepad how many days we had spent in the hospital, because I had an expectation that when they had attained a certain age, that they would be bigger and I would get to know them for who they were, for their different characters, and it was an amazing journey. On day 103 after birth, Evan was discharged on October 29th, and it was one of the happiest days of our lives. Those few days alone with Evan at home and my husband, it was one of the toughest days because we were used to having them on monitors at the hospital, so when we tried to sleep, any sound I heard, I would jump up off my bed to just check up on him. But I think we were too scared for nothing. After a couple of days, my mom arrived in Germany to support, and thankfully it was amazing because Kian was still at the hospital, so we were shuffling between going to the hospital and staying at home with Evan. Despite the first intervention for the brain hemorrhage that Kian had with the first surgery, unfortunately, he had to go into a second surgery on the 15th of November, which is practically supposed to be like a day after their original birth date. So Evan was at home getting bigger and having fun. But one day, they asked us to bring him to the hospital again to get some vaccinations. 2 to 3 days after Evan's vaccination, on October 22nd, Kian was discharged from the hospital and the both of them came home together. We were so happy to finally see Kian at peace because he had been through a whole lot. Fortunately for us, this did not last because Evan was rushed to the hospital a day after, on the 23rd of November. He got reintubated and put to sleep so that he could get treated. His temperature was so high, and this was a sign of fever and a possible infection. After some days of intubation and then high flow support, he started to look a lot better, although he's still at the hospital as of today, December 18th. However, we are grateful for his milestones and how far he has come. Evan had his own share of, issues. He had liver thrombosis at some point, but let's not talk about it for now. Kian missed his brother so much. After 1 week, he also got readmitted into the hospital. This is brother Sammy, who came to visit the babies. Kian's temperature was so low that he had to be rushed to the hospital. Ever since, the babies have been roomed in together with us, the parents. They are so big that we cannot just leave them with the nurses. They need our attention. And God bless you, baby. Working and taking care of the babies. You are a superhuman. So far, so good. I would say this is the stage that we are at as at December 18th. Thankfully, Kian was sent home December 16th. So I'm making this video from the house. Evan is still in the hospital with my husband. But I am so grateful to God for everything and how far He has brought them. My babies are bigger and they have a lot of milestones to cross and to achieve. But I would say that they are progressing and they are meeting their milestones gradually. I posted part 1 of my pregnancy story yesterday, and I intend to post part 2 for those who are interested in the little details, but this is just a summary of everything. Thank you so much for watching, and yeah, bye everybody.